Thank you so much, Chairman, and of course to the ranking member for this important hearing. And thank you to the witnesses for coming and testifying as we talk about everything that we need to do to make sure that America continues holding the leading edge in critical sectors from semiconductors to AI to quantum. Mr. Chilson, first question will be to you. In your testimony, you say that the open source AI gap is one of the most important issues in AI policy. A discussion draft of my bill, the Open Source AI Leadership Act, would direct the Department of Commerce to identify and address barriers to the adoption of American open source AI models, while also reporting on the risks of open source AI models from places like China. And unfortunately, China is dominating in this open source AI race. And we know that, as they do in everything, they will leverage their position to rob American intellectual property, replicate that technology at a lower cost, and replace America's share in the global market through heavily subsidized products. And they also have laws on the books to require mandatory backdoors for the PRC and the PLA to be able to manipulate this technology. And so, two-part question to you. How did the Chinese get ahead? And can you give me a specific example of what happens if they stay ahead in the open source AI space?
Sure. So the Chinese got ahead in the open source space in part because they had no alternative. They cannot keep up with the frontier models that we build. They have not been able to figure out how to do that yet. And we make the most amazing closed models, but they're within the services of the companies who are building them. And so they focused on open source. In some cases, they leveraged the access to some of our models to be able to build some of those models. And so I don't want to diminish their innovative, incremental innovation in some of these spaces, but a lot of it was building on American innovation in the first place. And so that is how it's their focus on this technology that has gotten there. And a product that can be distributed for free is quite popular. It will turn out. So that's the other way that they've gotten ahead there. So and I forgot the second part of your question.
Give me a specific example of what happens if they stay ahead.
So one of the biggest challenges is that every startup across the world, including American startups, will, when they are working at the garage level stage, when they're still trying to prototype, they will reach out there for the best free model that they can get, low cost model that they would get. And if that is always the Chinese model, they will start to gain market share upstream. As China does build the capability to develop these models, they will continue to creep into the market share, I think, further up the stack. And so that would be my biggest concern.
And that's a great transition to the next question. Mr. Durbin, can you talk a little bit about that? What is going to happen if China is leading in this open source AI race? What's going to happen just to our economy if they are getting in early for some of our growing and starting companies? And can you just talk a little bit more about the impact that's going to happen to American companies if they're having to utilize open source Chinese AI?
Well, thank you, Mr. Evans, for the question, and I'll delve into this a bit. And I'm happy to follow up with you in writing afterwards as well. But I did say that one of the things we need to focus on is the fact that we know that technology leadership is what will end up attracting investment here, and so all of the bills that we're talking about today, we know that has that as a kind of a through line. That's where we're focused, so that we are attracting the investment, maintaining the leadership, making sure we have the workforce driving toward the economic growth that this country needs. But happy to follow up with you separately on your question.
Thank you. And then in my final 50 seconds here, last question is to you. Today, we're also talking about the Memory Chip Competitiveness Act, Assessment Act, by my colleague, Rep. Miller Meeks. And I've heard from companies across the economy about the rising prices of memory chips. DDR4 memory prices have reportedly increased by 700% to 800% year over year. What are the downstream impacts of these price increases on other industries and ultimately to the American consumer?
Well, there's no question that when we see an imbalance here, supply-demand has been greatly increasing demand for these chips across the economy, from, yes, data centers, but cars, every other connected device that we have here. So the challenge now is to make sure that we can get supply back, back in balance here. So whether or not there may be opportunities to look at, being able to ensure the availability of chips, I think what we really need to do is to make sure that we've got policies in place that will allow for the increased supply, everything from permitting reform to regulatory policy to, just ensuring that we've got the workforce needed.
And that brings down the price of anything with a chip in it. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.